In this lesson, we'll be looking at addition of integers. We have two objectives. First, we will add integers using the rules for addition, and secondly, we will add integers using the checking account method. So let's begin with the rules. First of all, the rules for adding positive numbers. We simply add as usual, and the answer is positive. Now guys, this is the same addition that you've been doing since you were in elementary school. This is where we say, I have 3 plus 4, and our answer is 7. If I look at another problem, I have 2 plus 1, and our answer is 3. And then finally, I have 7 plus 2, and if I add those, our answer is 9. So there's nothing new and exciting about this so far. Let's continue. What if I now want to add negative numbers? Well, remember we talked about absolute value earlier? Well, now we're going to use it because now we'll need to add the absolute values and the answer will be negative. So let me remind you, the absolute value of negative 3 would be 3. The absolute value of negative 4 would be 4. So it says I would add those absolute values, so I would get 7, but my answer would be negative. For some of you, I realize that adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers has been a thorn in your flesh for years now. So hopefully we can come up with some method that will help you be successful with that if it's a problem. Our next problem is negative 5 plus a negative 2. Once again, let's identify the absolute values. The absolute value of negative 5 is 5, and the absolute value of negative 2 is 2. It says we should add the absolute values, so I get 7, and this time, once again, the answer is negative. By the way, it's just a coincidence. Don't expect every answer to turn out to be a negative 7. And our last problem is negative 1 plus negative 6. Once again, the absolute value of this is 1. The absolute value of negative 6 is 6. And really, believe it or not, I wasn't thinking about this when I designed this slide, but the answer is indeed negative 7. Now, for some of you, that will be okay, and it's this one that causes more problems. This is when I have a positive number and a negative number. And it gets a little more complicated to keep up with the rules. It says subtract the smaller absolute value from the greater absolute value. Then, if the positive number has the greater absolute value, the answer is positive. If the negative number has the greater absolute value, the answer is negative. If the numbers have the same absolute value, the answer is 0. So let's look at an example. If I have negative 7 plus 5, first of all it says I am to subtract the smaller absolute value from the greater absolute value. So we'll need first of all to get the absolute values. The absolute value of a negative 7 is 7, and the absolute value of 5 is 5. Then it says subtract the smaller absolute value from the greater absolute value. So that means I would say 7 minus 5, and the number part of this is going to be a 2. To determine the sign, I look at the ABC rules, and it says if the positive number has the greater absolute value, then the answer is positive. Well, in this case, the one with the greater absolute value is right here, and it's the negative number. So we're looking at rule B, and it says if the negative number has the greater absolute value, the answer is negative. So that's the case we have right here. Our next problem we'll look at is negative 2 plus 5. Once again, we'll need to identify the absolute values. The absolute value of a negative 2 is 2. The absolute value of 5 is 5. First, we subtract to get the number part. It says subtract the smaller absolute value from the greater absolute value. So the number part would be 3, 5 minus 2. To now determine the sign of the answer, we look at which one of these has the greater absolute value. Well, this one is the larger absolute value this time, and since its sign is positive, then we are using the A part. If the positive number has the greater absolute value, then the answer is positive. You're not required to write the positive sign in front of that 3. You can if you want to. Now, I realize that you have heard these rules for many years. And for some of you, they've clicked and you're fine with those. For others of you, this has bothered you forever. So what I want to do is give you another method for adding signed numbers. So let's look now at the checking account method. And for some of you, you balance a checkbook every day of the week, and this method will make a lot of sense for you. The way it will work is this. Positive numbers will behave as deposits into your account. Negative numbers will behave as checks you have written. So let's look at how this method works. If I have two positive numbers, the way it behaves is this. I would think in terms of I have made a $7 deposit into my account and I made another $5 deposit into my account. Most of you would be able to tell me at that point there's $12 in my account. That one makes sense and is not a big deal. Let's keep going though. This time I have a -7 plus 5. This one behaves as a check. This one behaves as a deposit. So let me ask you, if you write a check for $7 and you deposit 5, tell me how much money you have left in the bank. And the answer is I have no money left in the bank. I'm actually in the hole $2. And if you tack on all those fees that the bank's going to attach to it, you're in the hole a lot more than that. But we're not going to worry about bank fees right now. We're simply going to add and subtract positive and negative numbers. Let's look at our next one. This time I have deposited $7 and I have written a check for $5. So let me ask you, if I put $7 in the bank and I write a check for $5, how much money do I have left? And most of you understand I have $2 left. The last case is this. I wrote a check for $7 and I wrote another check for $5. And I forgot to put any money in the bank. So I'm now $12 in the hole. I don't know which method will work best for you, but you do need to practice until you can get a handle on one of these methods. Later on we will be looking at how to use the calculator to do these, but for right now you should be able to do these without a calculator. I do want to give you this assurance. I will not be expecting you to add or subtract very large numbers or even multiply and divide very large numbers, but I do think that you should be able to do some basic addition and subtraction. So what I want to do now is I want to give you some problems that you could practice. What I would suggest at this point is that you pause the video and you write down these 5 problems and work them using whichever method you're most comfortable with. Once you've completed this, I would suggest that you return to the video and check your answers. They will come in on the next screen. I hope at this point you're looking at your answers and you're going, wow, I did really well. If you didn't, I suggest that you look at which ones you missed and why you missed them. Make sure that you understand before you move on any further, because these concepts are going to be important for you all semester. That's all I have for you today. If you have questions, be sure and let me know. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.